Better, which is comprised of myself, Natasha, Piyush, who you just heard from, Lydia, and Henel. So if you could all wave, guys. This is the Build Back Better team. So during this difficult period, obviously it's been really particularly difficult for the hospitality industry, and we all felt that a lot of businesses needed help and had a lot of unanswered questions. So these sessions really are aiming to help you out with those particular areas of concern. So far we've had an accountant talk about cash flow and everything money related. We've had a lawyer, and we've had myself talking about design. And today we've got somebody talking about branding, and I'll introduce him in a minute. Just a reminder that these events are completely free. If you've registered, you just need to keep these details safe, and they'll be valid for every future session as well. So you don't need to worry about re-registering if you don't want to. Just keep those Zoom details on hand, and they'll be the same for every session. The sessions are limited to 45 minutes. We know that everybody's under time pressure, got lots to do, so we'll try and keep things short and snappy for you. But as Piyush introduced everybody, it's really a kind of an opportunity for everybody to talk to each other in the industry, see what our pain points are, see how we can all help each other out. So that's the reason for the kind of networking part of the beginning of the session. We might be taking photographs, so if you don't want to have your photograph taken or shared, please do let one of us know. If you could please stay on mute for the duration of the talk, but we do really encourage questions, so please pop them in the chat box and then we'll come back to you at the end, so the speaker can answer those for you. And there will be a question and answer session at the end. So as I said, I'm Natasha, I'm a restaurant designer, and I'm here to help you with any questions or concerns during the session. Henel will be monitoring the chat box, so do drop your questions in there and we'll be sure to make sure that Mark answers those for you. Today's topic is ensuring your brand and marketing are aligned with your customers in the new world. So obviously, you know what you need to do to get to your customers on a normal occasion, but now there's no such thing. So Mark Elliott is our guest speaker, and he's going to be talking to us about what we need to do and what is different about the branding and your communication going forward. Just a bit about Mark. He's the founder of a company called Sparks for Growth Limited, and they specialize in marketing, consultation, strategy, and digital marketing solutions specifically for the hospitality sector. That's in the UK and overseas as well. He also has a book called Email Marketing for Success, which might be of interest for you later on as well. So I'm not going to be rabbiting on any longer. I'm going to pass on to our lovely guest speaker, who I will unmute, or Mark, you can unmute yourself. I don't seem to.
Yeah, I think that's me unmuted now. And I'm sorry if my signal there is showing as Nick. I'm actually using my wife's laptop, so I haven't suddenly changed names, just so you know. So welcome everyone, and thank you to all of the team, for the Build Back Better team, for inviting me in today. I'm going to whip through the subject of branding at quite a high level, first of all. And then within the slides I'm going to show you, actually what they will be is a sort of takeaway pack of slides that you can use after the event. So I'll share those on SlideShare so you can access them whenever you want. And they're actually something you can work through for your own business if you choose to do so afterwards. I'll also be sharing with you a link to set up a meeting with me at the end, so that you can book in a consultation call one-to-one, and that will be free of charge to get you started. So without further ado, I'm going to try and get these slides up. Let's just check the SlideShare works. So bear with me a second, please. Okay, if anyone can nod and let me know you can see them, that would be really helpful. Yeah, all good.
Yep.
Oh, I'm getting a clap. It's always good news. Okay, yeah. So the subject is ensuring your branding and marketing aligns with customers in the new world, obviously whatever that will be coming forward. It's evident that the hospitality sector has been massively impacted over the last 3 or 4 months, and I would argue a little bit towards the end of 2019, as the delays from Brexit kind of started to bite a bit. I certainly saw that in the hotel sector. You know, cash flows have been massively impacted. And the only thing I would say is that hopefully in July, maybe a little earlier, I saw today in the caterer, that we might be able to start getting customers back into at least the restaurant sector in-house. And there's some calls there to try and reduce the distancing from 2 to 1 metre, which was quite interesting, and being muted around that was literally today. So yeah, a lot of changes. But the question here really is, how can you leverage your brand and particularly as the changes have come through for a psychological level for customers, help them to be comfortable to come back through your door. So yeah, so I'll be sharing slides as we go through, and if you can ask questions, we'll pick those up at this time at the end. So first question, and if you please could comment in the comments box, what do you think a brand is? We just add some comments in there. Okay. Just give it another 5 seconds or so. Okay, we're going to get a million different answers here, and I think if we left this running for 20 minutes, we'd probably get a million more answers. It's one of the most difficult things to define, and there are so many definitions. It can be anything in some people's minds, from their logo and from the branding on their shirts that we were just hearing about just then, all the way through to customer service and how we interact and engage online with our customers as well. But I thought I'd share with you some of the views from some of the gurus out there, if you can call them that. I like gurus because they're really the sort of thing you end up studying when you're doing marketing at college and realise that you can't actually really use it in the real world. So brand is a contract between companies and consumers, according to Clift. Let's just get these slides moving along. My slides seem to have jammed for a second. Okay, cool. A brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organisation. I love this one. It's nice and long. The intangible sum of a product's attributes, its name, packaging, price, history, reputation, and way it's advertised. Wow, that's succinct. And Kotler, who's probably one of the most famous marketers, certainly from the 80s onwards, comes up with this statement here. I would argue that there's none of these are wrong, but actually how useful they are, I've always found them hard to actually implement for a customer. So I've kind of come up with my own definition, which I hope is a little bit more straightforward. So the way I see it is, it's the first customer impression of your company, whatever that impression is, wherever they see you, however they taste your food, touch your plastic bag, everything. It's right the way through to after sales and how you handle them. And then for me, it's the stimulation of the customer's senses, any of the senses, so sight, sound, touch, taste, all those things then create an emotional tie and memory that can be linked back to your brand and your business, as long as that is a strong enough experience. So hopefully that's a little bit more straightforward, a bit more tangible. I mentioned that I was going to go through 3 kind of pillars today, or a process that you can work through afterwards. I'm breaking this down to 3 key elements. So from this point onwards, there's the slides you can pull down and utilize to actually work through your own business. So it breaks into the big idea, the values of your brand, and the personality, which is the bit that most people tend to see and feel. And I think each of these slides, the best way to look at this is, what was your brand like 4 months ago, and how is it communicating, and what is your brand like now, and how should it be communicating, being sensitive to everything that's going on, of course. So straight in the big idea, the question here is, what are we offering? So fundamentally here, you know, if you're a high-end cuisine from a certain region in India, that's going to be your differentiator. That's what we're going to be offering. If you're a 7-star hotel, that's part of your offering. But then breaking it down into your detail offering is at the moment what people are missing, and we'll come on to that. And that really is going to be the motivator to promote going into this next period of time and bringing customers back and attracting new ones. I'm sorry if I'm going fast, it's quite a lot to get through. So what makes us different from our competitors? This could be a signature dish that you offer, something about your location and proximity, particularly at the moment where people can't travel too far or stay overnight. that could actually be part of your USP, that you're, I don't know, a seafood restaurant that is very close to people that they can get to. And is there something you offer exclusive in any way? Because these are the points to pull forward at the moment in your communications. I'd also argue that at the moment it's pushing forward assurances around cancellations when people have made bookings, making sure people can get their money back if they've paid up front, that sort of thing as well. So how can your business stand out? Or put in other words, I like to say it as, what are you famous for? So what is the one thing that you can really hang your hat on and say, that is the thing that we're most famous for as a business? And that is the thing that actually, again, creates probably the most loyal customers to come back to you again and again. Now, that can be something about the experience, that can be about the way that your staff customer service is handled, it can be the ambience of a restaurant, the location of a hotel close to, say, a beach or something. It's those things that make you stand out the most. At the moment, I think this is a classic question, really, of what do our consumers or customers need. And I think at the moment, there's a lot of desires coming through. I've seen stuff on posts where people are openly stating they're missing, earlier on it was like fish and chips, and dying for that to be available. I saw someone yesterday who just couldn't wait to get some mussels because they were actually going to miss their holiday in France this year, but they wanted to have a little bit of that flavour of France. And they went and bought them, and then they posted up about it on social media about how they're amazing. You know, these are the sort of things to motivate people. The funnier one I saw was the 2-hour queue to McDonald's in Chingford, where I live, and people queuing up to get a milkshake. But if that's what people are craving, it just shows the level of determination and desire they have to go and actually have that given to them. A 2-hour wait from McDonald's, I don't know about you, but I probably wouldn't bother. But there you go. I think the other thing that the customers are going to need, certainly in the first weeks of reopening, is going to be getting back together with family and friends and loved ones, and having that experience again of being cool and sharing that. And certainly, as you know, Natasha talks about what they're going to find is that's not quite the same as they might expect it when they come back in to what it was before. So I think it's going to get that kind of, getting that balance right is going to be quite hard. And of course, they will need assurances around things like safety and cleanliness. What I would say on that is be light touch on it. Don't bang on the COVID message too much. I think we're all getting a bit bored of that message, and it's almost becoming a turn-off. But of course, at the same time, people do need an assurance as well. Next area I've asked is really, where is your gap in your market? And as I said, these slides are about really you thinking through, rather than me just telling you the answers here. But the gaps here at the moment might be in terms of playing into their dreams. As I mentioned, people can't get away on holiday. So if you're offering things like Greek food, maybe they were going to Greece on holiday. Maybe you have a venue, or the hotel starts to open up, for example. And then maybe you could run a Greek night. You could, of course, have entertainment mixed in with that, as the lockdown rules allow. So it's going to be that very fine line, I think, to be honest. One of the things I'd also say here, and it might have been said before, is to really narrow that menu down as well. So look at the really key dishes that you offer, the ones that people really love. Narrow your menu down, and start pushing those gently out to customers first in, you know, nice engagement posts, which I know Lydia's going to be talking about social media next week, so she can detail a bit more about this. But actually, those are the sort of things that people are going to really crave to get back to. And by narrowing your menu down, you're of course reducing the cost to procure. The production actually in the kitchens is more efficient, and there's less wastage. And that in itself then will help with your margin side of the business as well. So although this slide is about a gap in the market, I thought I'd just add that as a side note. I suppose the next question is where was your business going? Sorry, not where is it going, but where was it going? And your business vision might have changed massively. It might not have changed at all. But I suggest that there will be an element of change now as to where your business is going into this new world, at least in the next 6 to 12 months. before you can revert back to your original vision or plan. And the innovations you might well have been putting in place, things like doing takeaway services, deliveries in different ways, will all come into play there. Now, I've mentioned here about switching, emphasis, or pivot. I mean, I just mentioned there in passing as well about suddenly doing deliveries where you might not have been. But actually, some businesses are having to change complete direction. They might have taken the opportunity to refurbish during the period. And the customers need to be brought along that journey now, nice and gently in your communication strategy, so that they know actually what's coming up when you're opening. I've seen some hotels and restaurants actually just stop their marketing altogether and not engage with the customers throughout 3 months. And there's two sides to that. One is in terms of the actual algorithms. They don't particularly like that. When you start to remove those posts, they're less effective. And the second side is your customers might just think you're not there anymore. So I would start to on the mark now. And again, Lydia can come on this next week in a strategy side. But readiness for opening. So yeah. So we just flick forwards. I'm going to rattle through these last ones now quite quickly. Offering an existing product to a new market. Again, I mentioned people who might be going on holiday, might normally have gone on holiday abroad. They're not going to be going on holiday abroad in the majority this year. So suddenly you've got a group of customers who would not normally be holidaying or eating heavily across the summer in the UK, who now you can offer your existing products to and build them into that experience, particularly if they're missing their holiday destination, wherever they were going. I think this is where Lydia's stuff next week will really come into its forefront. So the use of tone, language and design, this is more classic kind of branding stuff. The other stuff supports it and underpins it. And here, I think the language needs to be kind of like welcoming, engaging, really get customers to start to talk to you now. You could run competitions on here. You could start to say, basically a competition to win a table for 4 for your family to come back in the beginning as soon as you can redeem it and things like that. So yeah, lots of different areas. I'm running short of time, so I'm starting to skip now. I'd ask if your personality traits before lockdown the same as they are now. And this is a slide really saying how you can convey your company's personality. So, disruption is really important at the moment. Being first to get the customers through the door is critical. There's an estimate of 16 billion is going to be spent in the first week in hospitality alone of opening up, which is just an insane number. But that share of market is yours if you engage and you're different and you're unique and you're talking to your customers and talking with your customers. So my recovery recipe, if there is such a thing, is that what was then is being disrupted in the middle now by fear, doubt, desires to go and do things, bit concern, trust, excitement from consumers and longing to do things again. And I think that's got to be fed into your branding and communication strategy into the new you as you start to open. I'm just going to show you these 2 quick videos now to compare and contrast. They're 2 hotel groups. They're trying to encourage or warm their customers up. I have my very strong views on the 2. I'd like to obviously see what you think, so your comments can be put in there. I really want to hear what you feel about these and which one would encourage you to come back. They're quite different. So let me just play these along. Okay, so that's number one, and this is a very different approach to encouraging you back from a different hotel group.
Travel. We're taking off to new horizons. We do anything for a little escape. Far, far away. Yum. Just a little whiff of summer, a sprinkle of fresh snow. Who's ready for skiing? A little dip. So refreshing, isn't it? Let's celebrate your limitless creativity, your dreams in a drawer, your positivity, your imagination, your endless passions. As you hit the road again, our hotels are doing more than necessary, so you won't have to travel like this. Or like this. Travelers, our hotels will welcome you back in full safety. All. Ensure you are all safe.
Okay, I saw some good smiles on that second one. It's definitely a slightly more lighter-hearted version. My view on the first one is it's a little bit too clinical. It's a little bit prescriptive and a bit like a science kind of demonstration. But that's just my views, and you can see the personalities are distinctively different between the hotel groups. So things to take away. I'll leave you with this slide here in terms of just look at how you can adapt your communications to now bring customers back into the world. How can you adapt your business if you haven't done so already? And I'm sure some of you will have done. And really looking at how you really do start to engage customers. Get them to do something like posting up their favorite dish from your menu. Start to get a feeling what it is that they're missing. And what do you think you will do differently to drive more trust, advocacy, and maximize potential in the new world? So yeah, that's pretty much all I was going to go through today. Sorry, it's quite quick. Branding is a huge subject, but as I said, I'm more than happy to have a call with anyone that's interested. I'm offering half an hour. I'll put these slides up on SlideShare. In fact, they're already there, so you can actually access those if you'd like to. And I'll pop those literally now into the messages for you. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. I think there's some a lot of good information there. If anyone's got any questions at the moment, you're welcome to put your hand up and I can let you answer. Otherwise, I guess we do have a few questions that we can go from. What would you say is good branding and bad branding? What sort of points would you say to look out for everybody with regards to that?
That's a huge question, isn't it?
The top three, I would say.
The top three is making sure that whatever are you talking about visual branding, I presume, are you?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Okay, so from a visual branding side, something that is completely irrelevant to your customers is bad branding. And something that tells no one nothing about your business on that first kind of side, but the first vision they get of you. And I've seen some very poor quality design and logos as well. So, as much as you can get a logo knocked up on Fiverr, don't do it.
Yeah, definitely. You get what you pay for. I'm sure some of the branding people would qualify on that.
Particularly what I was saying there through the presentation, that the brand visuals are really the finishing touch to actually put across the personality of your business at the end. Yeah, so the pre-work there, looking at really what you're offering, who you are, your positioning, is what real branding is about. And then the designer and the graphic designers and videographers and everyone really look to that as the guide to how to produce the right visuals, whether that's in store or online as well. So without doing the pre-work, it becomes a bit fuzzy.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. What would you say if you're branding? As you said, there's a smaller menu, which hopefully a few people are thinking about. But how would you say if you are branding a smaller menu, but obviously things like seasonal, or as you change? At one point you mentioned as people's tastes are changing, as things change, how can you adapt your branding to complement it, shall we say? So if something is, you know, a hot spot at the moment and you capitalize on it, how can you make sure your branding is compatible?
Typically what you do is you put together a brand template, and that gives you your barriers and your boundaries about how far away from your color scheme, your typography, your layouts and everything that you can actually go before you start to break the brand. Because the thing about brand in itself is it's about consistency and recognition. And if you deviate too far away from that, then what you do is you start to lose the kind of the trail of thinking with your customers. There's a general rule of thumb that says that anyone has to see your brand 7 times before they even actually see it. I mean, cognitively see it. So if you start jumping around all over the place too much, you can damage that. I think the way to get around the seasonality issue, which I think is the question there, is to plan that into your comm strategy. And if your brand template then says, right, for, you know, autumn foods and then, you know, Christmas time and what have you, that there's a slight variation, but that's actually planned and designed in properly ahead. I certainly wouldn't jump too far left or right from your overall look and feel.
Let me ask you a personal question with regards to that. For example, in our cafe, we are known for various different types of food, but for example, my menu on each section is not very huge because each dish, shall we say, is more cooked with quality, shall we say, rather than just churning out a huge amount of each type. For example, you can get menus which have got 100 different types of dishes, but there's diversification in there. For example, a lot of my cuisines are both Mexican, Indian, European, Australian, wherever you name it. So there's, if you like to call it, different foods there, but branding is more about the international feel of it.
So sorry, what's the question?
So you know how you're saying with different types of foods, whereas my suggestion is that there is like branding, whereas your different types of cuisines, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, it's down to each individual restaurant, isn't it, in the end, or hotel as well. So if you want to be leaning on a more regionalised menu, then you still need to underpin that with your look and feel. So if you suddenly start having a kind of like different colours of Brazil and Argentina, then a bit of Greece and a bit of Spain, you can see already the flags alone, which are the typical side of things, or the food colours, will actually start to bounce it all over the place. So it needs to be planned through, and this is why, again, I didn't joke when I said using someone from Fiverr is a bad idea, because they can certainly throw something together, but it will look like a badly dropped omelette, I think. So yeah, I think that needs to be planned. If that's your strategy, then that needs to be planned into your design, but it also needs to be fed through in everything you're doing as well. So does that reflect, you know, how your restaurant looks from the outside to the person walking past who might, you know, be part of your footfall? Does it look like that online? You know, is that confusing? Is it clear messaging? You know, it has to really evoke the personality. And I would argue as well that it's probably you and your staff that need to come across as well as just the food. Because I can tell from having, you know, spoken to you a few times over the last couple of weeks, you're the personality, you're the front of house. And I wonder how much you're putting yourself front of house to get those messages across. And also, if you've got lovely staff, which I'm sure you have, you know, how much are your staff engaged with the customers online, offline, and putting across the feeling of your brand. So whilst logos, imagery, everything really important, actually the experience is what people come to your restaurant for more times than not, along with the food.
Perfect. Anyone got any questions? Yes, Natasha.
Thanks, Mark.
Hi, Natasha.
I wanted to ask, I've had a few people say, is it the right time to brand? And you've been obviously talking about consistency. So would it actually be a negative thing to rebrand at the moment?
I think, again, I always sound so, a typical marketer, I never say yes and no. It's like being a politician, a marketing job. It's something that on a strategy you'd look at, and how you would rebrand, there's a few different options for achieving it. So you could use the space where, if you haven't been communicating with customers at all, and you're going for a whole new strategy of the type of customer you want, the type of food you're serving, you could do a cut and shunt, as I call it. So that's literally basically dump your old brand, go for a new brand, and then relaunch. it's a pretty expensive option because it means everything needs to be reprinted. Online, not so much, but then you are going to have to reskin websites potentially, remove old content. But you can also go for a sort of subtle migration. So a migration strategy takes the brand forward gently and brings the customers with it. Now, I would suggest that's your better option so that you don't lose or isolate your existing customer base. It's also something you can do gradually and budget for as well. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers roughly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think if people are thinking about doing it, then yeah, they should do it. But as you said, take a more softer approach if they can't fund it completely.
Unless they've completely pivoted in this period. So literally, they're going to say they've said, right, that is it. We're going to use this opportunity to completely change the type of establishment we are and who we're going to be targeting. Then you could do a complete rebrand. But again, you know, there's costs involved in that, and the risk is to lose any existing customers.
Yeah, and as you say, it's all about you know, what you're communicating exactly. So if your business has changed, you do need to communicate that, and perhaps a rebrand would be part of that strategy, as you say.
Yes, I mean the whole strategy around gently making those communications fits into the branding and messaging as well. And again, this is the sort of thing that Lydia would be doing in social media, I should think, for restaurants if they're considering those sort of changes, because it certainly has to be managed carefully. You know, if you suddenly saw Coca-Cola change its logo to, I don't know, dark green, and they were suddenly offering only lemonade, you'd be absolutely confused. And I think you've got to block that confusion and migrate people with you along that journey.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, quick question, if I may. I think with hospitality and branding is a kind of, there's a little niche in the sense of when you're branding in different industries, you're branding a product. Whereas in hospitality, although it is the food as well, the extra thing which sets everybody apart for me is the customer service. Any tips on branding customer service for everyone listening? Because I think that's quite a thing that would set you apart.
I actually worked in customer experience inside a big energy company for a long time. And to be fair, those large corporates aren't particularly great at doing customer experience, but they certainly started to look at how staff were trained, particularly to fit in line with the branding and aspirations. And that's at every single point where there's a touch point, as we call it, with a customer, from picking up the phone to being outside the restaurant, you know, not being outside there smoking a fag by the door, you know, that sort of stuff. But also then in terms of how do you want your customers to be spoken to? How do you want the menus to be presented? You know, the absolute end-to-end side of it can be trained in, and that is part of a brand strategy, in my view. And it should be part of their training when they're brought on board, because they will come in with some bad habits. I mean that nicely, but you know, habits they picked up from previous jobs and roles that suddenly won't fit or will jar with a customer who's used to coming to receive a certain experience from your staff. So I think there's very much, like, as I mentioned in the slides earlier, is making sure that human element is really, really considered, and staff are crucial about that, particularly in the sector of all sectors. It can be a very fragile, slippery slope down TripAdvisor or after service reviews, and I've seen some horrific moments. I won't go into them today.
Perfect. Anyone got any questions they'd like to pose? No? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one. It was quite a salient point about future shaping of branding. I was just wondering, based on past reviews and feedback that you have leading up to COVID, is that a good point to start developing further your brand, whether you're going to pivot or whether you're going to carry on the good work? I mean, how much in seriousness would you take, because there are people out there who might just have a vendetta on TripAdvisor or whatever, but how serious would you take the feedback of, say, Q1 of 2020 to pivot or move your business as we come out of lockdown, etc.?
I think with all these things, and it's not just in reviews, but across the board here, if you've built up equity, as it's called, in your business, and by equity I do mean how the brand has become a personality, that's something that you should always look to move forward and capitalize on. Now, if you've had bad reviews, the only way to get around bad reviews is to engage with the bad reviewers at the time and trying to kind of turn that around. And where they have good reviews, yes, you can build on those. Yes, you can show those reviews. And again, Lydia, something you might do as well in the role you do is to pick up reviews from customers, or do something really great and phone that customer and say, look, we're looking to reopen again in a few weeks' time. You know, come in, we'll a meal on us or a drink on us or something if you do a video post to say how wonderful we are. And pick up those good reviewers, pick up the phone to them and say, look, would you mind? You know, sometimes that reward is really, you know, it's a small cost to get a huge amount of customer kudos back. And because they're real customers, they won't feel stoogey or like actors. So I don't know if that helps, but it is about any element of your brand, your business that was good quality and you can build upon. Yes, of course, carry it forwards. Don't throw it all away overnight, because you've probably spent years trying to build that up in the first place. Does that help?
I honestly think that getting good reviews bad reviews is good, because then you can demonstrate how good you are at fixing the problem. So if you look at all the reviews you see out there, I'm very cautious of everybody who's 100% brilliant. What I do look for is where they've given a bad service. We all get it wrong sometimes, but how the business reacts to it, right? So that's very important. And I honestly think that I wouldn't necessarily go to a restaurant because they've got 5 stars. You don't know, these days you can pay for reviews, right? So sometimes getting bad reviews is good as long as you know how to respond to it. That's my
Absolutely agree. And I will give a very quick example where a hotel in London contacted us because they had received 44 bad reviews in 3 hours, which is quite painful. And it was on Facebook, and you can't delete those, so it's an absolute nightmare. And it was only because of a misunderstanding about who they were booking into the hotel for a conference, and it turned out to be a far-right group who then got very drunk, came to the lobby area and started being abusive to all and sundry, and so on and so forth. So our job was then to try and turn that around. It was an incredible challenge, but I'm pleased to say they bounced back. So yeah, it can be done. That's a really one-off extreme example, but you're right that occasional not so good reviews allows you to learn, and it's great because it's feedback. You know, feedback should always be encouraged anyway. And in terms of handling it, unless they're a troll, which I've responded to on my Facebook page before and said, you know, that's really interesting. You're annoyed that we're outbound calling to you, because we actually don't outbound call. So I'd love to talk to you privately, and so we can address that issue because it's damaging our brand.
Do you know, here's a thought. You want to do something differently. So why don't you give your customer a review? Go on their Facebook and say, it was great to serve you as a customer. Please come again, right? You switch it, you give them reviews. It's different. Crazy, I don't know. But
Hey, why not? I've tried it.
Be different.
I did have a think about that, doing a customer TripAdvisor thing, which is just for restaurant and a hospitality thing, which would be a great thing. But I think there's a legal issue involved in that.
Be careful giving a bad review, because they'll see you in court.
There's also, just so I close off, we've also just started to partner with, before the lockdown, in fact, we haven't got to launch it yet. We've partnered with a software company that overlay Wi-Fi with a thing called social Wi-Fi. And part of that is about capturing reviews and a bunch of other really clever stuff, building your databases, cleaning your email lists automatically. But actually in there, if someone goes to give a very bad review, then actually what it does, it actually alerts the team member or a member of staff, who then have the opportunity to contact that customer to try and address that issue before that is actually posted. And the results I've seen, they're a Spanish company, the results I've seen are incredible, because they do actually let the review go up, as you said, but then suddenly underneath it, the customer says, well, since then, this has happened, and this is how I was handled. And it's super, super powerful. And it can be overlaid onto Wi-Fi in restaurants and hotels and all over the places. Really cool stuff. So I'm pretty excited about getting that going once I'm allowed to open my business again, which would be nice.
Interesting.
Perfect.
You're going to move?
to Lydia.
Lydia?
Okay.
Go on. I'll let Lydia carry on. Sorry.
Thank you. So firstly, on behalf of our Build Back Better team and our attendees, thank you to our guest speaker, Mark. That was a fantastic talk. So yeah, hopefully everybody's gained some value from it. I certainly have, and it always brings some inspiration hearing other marketers talking. So if everybody could unmute themselves and give Mark a round of applause, that would be brilliant.
Wow.
Very good.
Once again, thank you to all of our attendees for joining us here to Build Back Better. Each time it's great to see some of you regulars coming back, and also to welcome some new faces and new businesses. So if you wouldn't mind just completing the poll on your screens now, it's really helpful for our team to learn how you've kind of experienced the event, so we can learn and do it better next time. Thank you. Has everybody got the poll?
Yeah, I launched it. Everyone see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is anonymous, just so you all know.
Oh, here's a few reviews you've got to respond to, Mark.
Okay. Fine. Bring it on. I love it.
And whilst you're all doing that, I'm just going to give you some notes for your diary about up and coming events. So next week on the 15th of June, you've got me. So I'm going to be talking about social media and how to kind of put some content together and some ideas that are going to help you stand out on the news feeds and be memorable for the right reasons. 22nd of June, you've got environmental health specialist Samantha Dillamore. And she'll be talking about all things health and safety. And on the 29th of June, we'll have an AV expert talking about all things digital. So some dates there for your diary. Last but not least, to my team members, Piyush, Hanal and Natasha, we all love making this event happen so that we can help the hospitality industry reopen and build back better. So thank you, everybody, and goodbye and have a lovely evening.
Thank you all for coming.
Before you go, Mark,
Thank you.
Mark, I thought I'd share the poll with you. And while you are here, the Zoom link and the password is the same every week. It doesn't change. So it doesn't even matter if you haven't registered, just jump on. And you know what? We've got about 5 or so events left, because I think we're going to stop on the 6th of July. So bring as many people as you can, and let's inject some confidence in them and build back better. That's what it's all about. Thank you. And
Thank you very much.
hope you enjoy any bad reviews there.